Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is March 29th, 2024, and you're listening and watching the Daily AI Show live. And today we are doing a review of Claude. As you may have seen in the news, Anthropic, who is the maker of Claude, so you might have heard Anthropic, or you might hear Claude, depending on the news story, came out a couple weeks ago, probably about a month ago at this point, with three different models. Essentially, they came out with a lightweight model, sort of the middle of the road free model, and then they came out with their most powerful model. And those three names are Haiku for the lightweight, Sonnet for the middle one, and Opus for their higher quality one and paid. And before I do that, let me just say who's here. Beth, Andy, Jyunmi are all here. I'm Brian. We'll see if anybody else pops in. But what I wanted to say is why this is really relevant is just in the last 2 days, Opus, the most powerful model from Claude, has dethroned GPT-4 as the top performing model. So let's just quickly define that. Where does that come from? Well, that comes from, I believe it's GitHub, but it's 70,000 votes of people who use all these different types of models. And we're talking from the open source, the llamas and all the stuff that's out there. So many of them, mixtures and everything else. And they have decided, if you will, through their voting structure, that Opus is the most powerful LLM. Now, it's by the slimmest of margins, and it's in here and it's there. We were talking about that the other day, right, Andy, where it's like, it's a little here and it's a little there, and it really depends. And what we want to talk about today is like, okay, you have these three models. What does that mean? And then really sort of dive into some of the use cases where you might use this over maybe another tool like a ChatGPT or Gemini or your tool of choice. So that sort of gives you the ground rules of where we are today. And as always, when we do these review shows, we pick some new or some AI solution, software, whatever, every other Friday. And then what we try to do is just give you our best unbiased review of it. Not because we particularly love it, not because we pay for it, none of that stuff. It's more of, hey, this is how I'm currently using it, and this is what I'm seeing from my particular use case. And what's nice is we always have a nice cast here. And so you're looking at, at this point, 4 of us who all have different areas of specialties inside of AI, as well as what we're doing on other jobs and tasks. I focus a lot in sales because I work for Scaled, which is a sales consulting company, and I'm the AI strategist there. So a lot of my brain power goes towards sales. So naturally, that's where I want to see if Claude can outperform. So I'll just start this off before I kick it over to the group and say that I have been a fan of Claude for almost a year. And the way I learned about Claude was actually through the app Poe, which at the time was the only way that I could access it on my phone, was through the app Poe. And that shout out goes to Rachel Woods, the person we all know and love, and she started the AI exchanges where we all met. And Rachel tweeted about it, probably put out a TikTok about it, to be honest, and was like, "I'm really loving Poe, but specifically, I'm loving this language model called Claude. It's pretty cool." And I started using Claude. I think the next day I showed it to my wife, and my wife was using it the next day at work for tasks. That's how quickly we were in this family, at least. We were like, oh man, Claude is really impressive. This would be back when maybe 4 had come out at that time, and we were just really loving it. So not surprising to see Anthropic continue to put huge, pushes and advances toward it. Rachel also was the one way long ago that predicted that Claude and Anthropic, in her opinion, was really focusing on the enterprise level and what you could do at an enterprise level. And I think she's ultimately right that she made that prediction 9-10 months ago when I saw her do it. So that's where we are today. Okay, so that's a little bit of an intro, a little bit longer of an intro, but to get things kicked off, what else do we want to do? Usually, Andy, you have some background that's really insightful.
Yeah, I can feel some context.
Yeah, I was like, I can see it. Andy wants to give some context.
Just a couple of points of context. One is that Anthropic, that company, is made up of ex-OpenAI employees who left OpenAI to go after a more constitutional model that had guardrails built into it and would surpass OpenAI's focus on sort of commercialization and achievement of artificial general intelligence, with ethical AI and practical applications. And the second piece of context I'd like to add is that there's just a handful of major players who are building these largest models with the most advanced reasoning capabilities. And Anthropic has, as you know now, really overmatched in some ways GPT-4 and OpenAI. But we're about to see GPT-4. What it's being compared to is over a year old. So OpenAI probably has something under the hood that we'll see that will go beyond that. However, the chops that Anthropic has developed are so significant that Amazon, which is a major player in AI, has just added billions of dollars of investment to Anthropic. So cumulatively, they have invested $4 billion in Anthropic. So this is not a startup that's coming along and challenging OpenAI. Right. This is a major player on the field. And then to your point, Brian, about focus on enterprise, that may be something that happens out there. But the fact that Microsoft, which has a very large purchase in enterprise, has allied with OpenAI means that it's unlikely that many enterprises who use the Microsoft platforms are likely to end up using Claude.
Oh, for sure.
I'm not sure what segment of enterprise would be using Claude, but they should try it because it really is a substantial play.
Yeah, I think let's talk about that. Where would you possibly use Claude 3 is what they call it, but 3 also could mean that there's 3 as in after 2, and also 3 as in there's 3 models. And I honestly don't know which one they meant there, but regardless, we'll say
it's after 2. It's after 2. The foundation model that the smaller models are based on is Claude 3 Opus, and that is their main training stream.
Well, one of the big areas I think, and not to say that ChatGPT isn't working towards this, or rather OpenAI, just to be clear, isn't working this along with Microsoft, because honestly, I did just see a little news story where somebody's dug into the coding, as you sometimes see. And what they noticed was that OpenAI is testing, and it sounds like they're going to have the opportunity inside a prompt where it's going to auto select whether parts of that prompt or that chat, not the parts of a prompt, probably the parts of a chat window that you're having a discussion, when it should automatically use 3.5 versus 4, which is really smart because there's a lot of times where 3.5 is just fine. It's faster, cheaper, and it makes sense to do that, both from OpenAI standpoint for power usage and also from the user standpoint for price. Well, this is where I think Anthropic has made a really, really good play, because what I'm seeing when I do the research and when I was researching deep in this show is it's not just about, just Haiku, which is just to be clear, that's the fastest, lightest, cheapest model. It's about, when can I go in for this task, this larger task that I have that maybe have multiple steps? Or in the example I saw, it wanted to come up with examples to use in a bigger meta prompt. What this person did on YouTube is they went and used Opus, the most expensive model, to create the best examples. But then they went back to Haiku using those best examples to run a lighter, more efficient model. And I think this is absolutely how you're going to see businesses do this, because they're going to set it up through the API, and they're going to have, multi, like, let's say PDFs or URLs or something like that they're trying to run through. They're not going to pay Opus prices for that. It would be very, very expensive to do that. But they can set up really good prompts. They can set up really good evaluation models, like Beth and I used to teach in the class we used to do for AI Exchange. And I think it's the evaluations, Beth, where I see the biggest advantage of having 3 models here, because you can quickly go from, I need the best. Okay, now I need the fastest and lightest. Now I need the most detailed answer, but now I need to run it quickly. I don't know, Beth, what do you think? Because on my mind, it went right to evaluations with this.
Yep. And there, other people are working on this externally as well. If you follow Nick Dobos, the creator of Grimoire on X, he's got a project that he's talking about, which is he's referring to as HiveMind, and he has all the models there that you could pick from, and potentially that the system could pick from as well. Or maybe you're running multiple. Maybe part of the evaluation is running it against multiple models to see where you're getting your best option. Is this Claude 3? Is this Gemini Ultra? Or is this ChatGPT, whatever number we're on, kind of prompt? But what I really like about the evaluation idea that Brian was talking about is that when you get something that's working, you then start playing with how far can you downgrade the model, or how far down can you go with the model, because it is so much cheaper. And one of the things that's interesting about this is that Claude's prompts are really long. Like I did some work with the Helper collab notebook and the version of that Rowan from the Rundown published in the Rundown newsletter. And that's a Google Doc. And part of what they did when they released 3 was give some more specific instruction, but also like, hey, run this in a collab notebook and it will generate a prompt for you. Now, I ran into a limitation with that. It would only show me the last 5,000 lines. So these are very, very long prompts because they have a ton of examples. But again, once you have that and you can start to shrink down, like what is really necessary and do I still get the quality? I think Anthropic has really given us more, and far more actually, than OpenAI has, and certainly more than Google has, in a way that we can access and really play with to see where we're getting the best value. I'm super excited about Haiku. I think it's an amazing play for the money.
Yeah, in fact, I want to use a use case, but I want to make sure everybody is getting a chance to speak here. But I just threw it up on the screen for anybody having to watch, but I'll tell you what it says. This is just straight from Anthropic's site. So Claude 3 pricing. This is per million tokens. It says all Claude 3 models support vision and a 200,000 token context window. But just to give you an example of the difference in price, at your lightest and fastest, your Haiku, its input cost is 25 cents per million tokens, output $1.25. Then if we get the Sonnet, which is the free model in the middle, well, Sonnet's free to use. If you're running through the API, there's cost there. That goes from 25 cents to the input to $3. Opus is $15 per million tokens. That is a difference. I was curious what the percentage difference was between a 25 cent and a $15 per million tokens. And it's nearly 200% difference. So Haiku is nearly 200% cheaper per million tokens than using Opus. And so what you're saying, Beth, I think is exactly right, which is, do I need Opus all the time? And how do, like, we saw this, right? We know that people are doing this evaluations. Companies are going to have to set up tests for this, experiments where they're literally going and getting good results and then saying, okay, let's see, we don't want to pay that rate. So like, let's see if we can get nearly as good or just as good results paying 25 cents per input per million tokens. Or another example was, there's a Claude video about this that Anthropic put out on YouTube, where they're taking, I'll just show it to you really quick on the screen. Hold on, I think it's on the other screen. And it's just a freeze frame just to show you what it looks like. And we can explain it really quick, but here it is. So what if you happen to be watching this, you can see it. But what this is Claude put out this video, or Anthropic put out this video. And what they were showing was Haiku, because of its vision capabilities, it was built natively with vision capabilities. It can take, the document that we're looking at is pretty rough. We could all agree it's a scanned in document. It's from the Depression area, I believe. And it's like personal accounts during the Depression area, but it's a rough document. We could sit there long enough as humans and read it and go, okay, yeah, I can put that together. Well, what they were doing was they were taking basically hundreds, if not thousands, of these scanned documents, and Haiku was having absolutely no problem reading them. But also, Haiku was also pulling out metadata. It was also pulling out keywords, and so they were saying if you were a film director who was going to put out a documentary and you were doing research, how effective and powerful it would be to be using something like Haiku to quickly go through these documents and pull out key themes and what real life people back from the Depression you might want to be highlighting in your story, a la Helen Burns or something like that. And so somebody in the comments said, well, just basically, what are we talking about cost here? I don't have this verified, but I'll just say what it said in the comments, which was per megabyte upload, this is probably less than a megabyte, right? It's a document. It was something like 0.0005 cents. So a half of a cent, something like that per megabyte. I mean, that is astounding when you really think about what you can do with a light, fast model like that. So what I really just want to say is, Haiku is no slouch. Just because it's the lightest and the fastest and the cheapest, it's no slouch. You could do a ton with that model. And I think that's where people should be. If you're paying through the API, that should be your focus, which isn't, I need Opus. It's when does Opus do me the best work? And how can I quickly downscale that and get into a Sonnet or Haiku for the lightest and fastest. Carl, by the way, joined us a little bit ago. Carl, have you had a chance to play a little bit with
no.
any of the 3 Claude models?
I can't play with Opus because I'm in Canada. So screw you, Anthropic too. So I can play with it through Perplexity, which is hilarious. And if you go to focus mode writing, then it's not a web search. You can do it through there. I actually wanted to I have played with it, and just like everybody else, I think the creative writing part does a little bit better unless you really hone in your prompt in ChatGPT, put the custom instructions or your custom GPT is very specific. It's I kind of like the output, and I've been using Claude as the default for Perplexity. And then even from Respell, I like the outputs. But here's where I wanted to take this a little bit, where every single client that I've had, again, medium-sized business, I have no clue what the heck I talk about when I said Anthropic. We're like, what the heck is that?
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, great. Tell me about ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally it. I don't know. So I was thinking about there are like even Gemini. And I think I sent, I don't know if I can share my screen just a little bit.
Sure.
And, I love some of the things that Anthropic's been doing. I like that it doesn't train on the data. I like a couple of that stuff. But if you look at over the last 90 days, who has the lion's share of interest? And this is just in Google Trends, just in the United States. Anthropic is like a blip. Claude, blip. Anthropic, nothing. Sure, here's Gemini and here's OpenAI. It's like a behemoth, and then here's like some stuff. And it's interesting because when you see it on X, especially on X, everyone's like going crazy on it. In business, nothing. It's like, okay, great, fine, fantastic. I don't care. I want you to talk about ChatGPT and I want you to talk about OpenAI. That's what I want to talk about. I don't want to talk about something that I probably could I use? Yeah, sure. But it's a fascinating thing where you may have models that are better, but that elephant in the room, I think is I think it's like setting up its home, and it's like becoming the home. And I don't know if that's a good thing, that's a bad thing, but if for businesses who have ChatGPT for teams, ChatGPT for enterprise, there is no way they're just going to be, well, I might just go to Amazon Bedrock and switch there and try. So how, in your all opinion, how, like as much as we can talk about it, as much as people hear about it, in regular day-to-day business use, it doesnn even register. So I'm curious to know, and any model doesn't register. So how does someone like Anthropic even break through? Because we know in 2 to 3 months, we're going to be here glorifying GPT-5. it's just going to happen like that. And then everybody's going to be doing the same thing. But because of OpenAI, they'll get all the press. And it takes off again. So how would Anthropic or Claude even compete, even though at the moment they seem to have the better model, although they're competing against a model that was released technically last year? So how would that work?
I think Andy kind of hit on this a little earlier in the show. It really is how it's attached to the incumbents, right? Microsoft is OpenAI. They have integrated that. So if you're in the Microsoft ecosystem, you're using GPT-4 or whatever model. And same with Google. Google's like, all right, everything Google Vertex, AI, all of that stuff, it's all going to be using Gemini and Gemma and all those kinds of things. So if you're in the Google environment, that's what you're going to be using. AWS, Andy pointed out, put in a couple more billion into Anthropic. So if you are ingrained in the AWS environment, you're going to naturally be looking at Anthropic for your AI needs. Does that mean it's going to be exclusive? Well, I don't know. You just pointed out the knowledge base of people just searching for stuff. It's all OpenAI, but I think that's where they're trying to make that play, is going to be, let's see if we can get all the AWS customers on Anthropic. Let's use that as our vehicle to get into enterprise and things like that. I think that's what the other two have been doing. I'm just making the assumption that that's what AWS plans to do with Anthropic, or at least their investment in it.
Yeah, which, I mean, look, once it gets tied in with AWS as it is, that's thousands of businesses. That's AWS.
AWS makes the play of like, oh yeah. And we've seen this in Microsoft, where they're trying to release Copilot for every single product they have.
Yeah.
So anyone who's just using one product will still have Copilot. I can see AWS just trying to integrate it. The way that they're broken up is similar, like how Google's built up for their systems, where every little service you can tap into it. So if Anthropic, AWS makes the play, there's some sort of Anthropic mechanic or feature that's built in to all of our services. You're already using the service. Why don't you use this as part of it?
What's interesting is I saw another chart, and I was actually in a roundtable with a couple of companies that are using AWS. And again, it's funny. I said, "Hey, are you any of you using Claude?" And they're like, "No." It was no, or like, I kind of saw it, but we're going to go with ChatGPT. So even then, there is that knowledge inside companies. They're like, it's fantastic, but I'm still, and there was a chart I saw, I don't know if Gartner put it out, like a big company put it out, that like enterprise usage of large language model, it's kind of the same. OpenAI dwarfs, Gemini second, you got like Anthropic as the I don't know, like in those companies, is it like kind of just the default? It's like, we'll go this, but what I've noticed too is Sam Altman's out there every day. He's doing the Lex Fridman podcast, like all that stuff. Where is Dario? You don't hear anything. So the only way they're technically getting in marketing is through like us and through the people, but it's just marketed to the community. There's nothing marketed outside to the general public. And Sundar, right? So like, the attachment to Google, but it's an interesting thing too. And even the OpenAI drama itself, that's news. And it just put OpenAI in the sphere versus Anthropic's. Like it's like people you work with, you're like, what is Anthropic? I have no clue what Claude is. I know what ChatGPT is though. And it's a very fascinating thing. So as much as Claude, I even like Smog, like from Amicus, I kind of, it's like, it's not bad. But I don't know how any of these companies are going to break through. And sorry, this is taking out into the actual review of Claude, which I like Claude. I use it for automations and things like that. But I don't know. It's just in the end, we're all just are we all just going to be going right back to ChatGPT, especially with GPTs? And I'm already kind of baked into that ecosystem. I'm not really baked into the Claude there is no ecosystem. I'll put some stuff out. I know a bunch of AI content creators. They're like, oh, I switched to Claude. I'm like, no, but you'll be back in like 2 or 3 months. When GPT-5, you're all going to be talking about it. It won't matter. So it's a fascinating environment.
Yeah. I want to highlight something that you said, which is that the custom GPT functionality, which allows you to basically create a pre-prompted version of a large language model and have it in a little library on your UI that you can then invoke, and you can actually programmatically invoke them. All of that is not there at Claude, right? They don't have custom GPTs.
But you can run it directly through just to be clear, you're right. You can't pre-bake it in and then just run that custom GPT version in Claude. But the prompts work just as well. I'll show you an example here in a second where it actually works better than the custom GPT.
That's the sad thing, is that Claude is better at certain things. Yeah. And you ought to, it would be ideal if you had, as some platforms do provide, Respell, for example. You can invoke, or you can use a prompt against Claude. You can use it against OpenAI. You can look at the difference between those two and decide which one you want to include in your automated workflow. Okay, so that's the right way to approach the optimization of these things, using prompt engineering and also selectively interacting with models that are well suited to whatever that particular step in the application is. That's the right way to do it. But for the broad adoption, the fact that I can go into the GPT store and just say, find me something that does this, and I look at the rankings, and here's one that's got thousands and thousands of uses, and you pick that out of the store and run it, that's a lot faster than me sitting down and trying to write a prompt for Claude.
For sure.
And a real quick question, can you access the store with the free version? Because I haven't checked. I don't know if they made that switch. If that's not possible, I think for mass adoption, if we're talking about everybody else, and I'm just speaking to the fact that those features aren't available in the non-paid version. And
good point. Good point. And I'll use another point about that is that once you have a subscription, you're paying that subscription.
Yeah,
that's sticky, right? Yeah. I'm not going to jump over and start using Claude exclusively while I'm paying over here on OpenAI, and GPT-4 has a vanishingly small difference in terms of its capabilities, right, compared to Claude. Now, I do like Claude better, and I've done some things, and I want to see what you're going to demonstrate, Brian. I've done some things, testing prompts against both in the Vellum interface, and I've talked about that on a much, much earlier show. And Claude was the one that I ended up, saving the results from, because it was doing a better job on the exact same prompt, even though there are some markup differences that you ought to follow it when you're prompting in Claude as compared to the prompts that you develop for OpenAI's GPTs.
Especially,
I want to say something about the vanishing small difference, because while I think on these, this is better and worse, that is small, but ChatGPT has more annoying problems than Claude in my experience, right? Like, and it may be because Claude isn't running code the same way that Code Interpreter is, but there are a bunch of times where with ChatGPT where I'm just getting like, oops, sorry, try again, right? And that is not what Claude does. And so I think while the difference may be vanishingly small, the experience is a much broader difference.
Would you say, Beth, that maybe one thing I was thinking was like, there's a reason why ChatGPT we've seen a little bit of a degradation of it is because of reinforced human learning feedback. And I think maybe it's because, imagine if we flipped it, that Claude had the same number of users as ChatGPT. Would would it be that like some of these problems would also come up because of the larger, like massive user base that is inputting, and then they have to adjust it? It's like as if OpenAI or Perplexity was up against Google. Google has a lot of things they have to worry about in terms of that huge customer base, versus Perplexity doesn't have to do anything. It's like, oh, I can just, whatever, sure, we can just add and innovate, but there's a lot more dependencies. So you could say that with OpenAI and ChatGPT, there's a lot more things they have to do, versus Claude doesn't have to do that because they don't have that massive base of people using it. And then they have GPTs and code interpreter, all those things. Just kind of a thought on why it seems to have degradation.
I think it's two things. I think you're right. They're serving a much larger population, but I also think that Claude coming out the gate and saying this is a constitutional AI has to do much less work when something pops up, right? I mean, I really do feel like OpenAI is like, ooh, this Tor, let's stitch it together. And ooh, this Tor, let's stitch it together. And I feel like Claude is really focused on its constitutional alignment and just makes tweaks in that. But this is speculation.
I want to add an anecdote, and I don't have a specific reference for this, but in conversations that we have as a team, I have heard over the course of time something about dialogue with Claude is really engaging and satisfying. And it's unlike, let me make a distinction between if I write a query, like just a question to ChatGPT-4, and I write it to Claude, there might not be much of a difference in terms of the outputs of those. But if I'm doing an extended exploration and conversation back and forth with the AI, it appears that Claude is better at that kind of dialogue. So that if you want to play with that,
there's no Claude app, right? There's no Claude actually. No. And that's the thing too. It's like I can go take that the OpenAI, the ChatGPT app, and do that conversation and get the back and forth. I can't do that with Claude. So there's some things that are like, doesn't really. But I'm like, you know what? It's like the Apple ecosystem. Like, there's some things I just don't like about it. But you're starting to go, well, it's gonna take me a long time, and I don't feel like switching to Android. Yeah, forget it. I'll just stay in the stupid ecosystem.
That's exactly what, in my house, when my wife says like, oh, I really like the look of that Samsung. She's really, really like focused on the Samsung or one of the flip phones. And I was like, look, you buy that Samsung flip phone in this house, and I'm going to excommunicate you. I'm not helping you. You'll get no tech support from me. You will get nothing. I am not learning that system. You buy an Apple and you play with the crowd in the family, or you go sit on that island by yourself and good luck.
I don't know. That poor woman.
I don't know. My wife is 10 times smarter than me. All I'm saying is, I'm out. I'm not doing it. It's like
running double all the way, right?
I don't know if you see the TikToks for like the there's women who like get the ick if you are using like the green messages on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's just green bubble is no good. Yeah, exactly.
It's just a messenger system. Why would it matter? But it does matter.
Have to make me happy that I'm this year I'll be married 18 years. Like, old man, I got there before this stuff came out. Like right before all the texting and all the online dating. I made it right before this. I feel grateful for that every day that I don't have to play in this world right now. I know we're all over time, but I do want to share this because I think it's important. We've talked a lot about Haiku and the light and speed and fast. We talked a lot about Opus and comparative models, but let's talk really quick about Sonnet. That's the free one. You literally can go to Claude.ai right now. And if you had this same prompt, you could literally run this yourself. Let me share my screen really quick, and I will do my best to make this succinct, but I think it's important. So we're going to share the window here real quick. Okay. So it's okay if you can't, if you're watching this or you're not watching it, it's okay. Basically what I do is one of the most powerful, most popular, well-used custom GPTs that we've built at scaled at I was gonna say .ai at scaled consulting where I work is one that helps people write cold email sequence. Not just any cold email sequences, highly personalized and focused cold email sequences. And I don't mean like, hey, I see you went to UGA. I went to UGA. It's like, great, thanks. You read my LinkedIn bio. Fantastic. We want cold emails that specifically talk to the pain points, the value points, these things for a particular title. So what we want to do is create what we call a snippet. And that's what this custom GPT, but all I did was take the same prompting and put it in Claude. Okay. So I took it out of custom GPT, ChatGPT, and I put it directly into Sonnet, the free version of it. And of course, we can't read through all this, but I'll tell you essentially what the tasks are doing. You give it any website. Okay. So in this example, we gave it vidyard.com. And I want to write emails as a Vidyard employee to whoever comes up as the target for what I want to do. So this takes Vidyard. It gives us a background of Vidyard. Then it gets into the second task and it starts telling us some different job titles of people who would be interested in using Vidyard. Then it takes those job titles and it says, hey, here are the industries and most importantly, sub industries. That's vital that these job titles would be playing in. Then what we do from there is we say, great, now let's start identifying some trends for each job title in each sub industry, along with the value props that Vidyard could solve for, right? The pain points they could do. Now, all I gave Claude was vidyard.com. That's it. I did not train it on Vidyard at all. So then what it does is it comes out and it says, hey, let's talk about some industry jargon that this particular job title, in this case, a marketing role, a CMO in the technology industry would possibly be using, like A/B testing, growth hacking, omni-channel marketing, right? By the way, along the way, you would obviously be correcting and adjusting. You would be doing the human in the loop, but I just ran it straight through. And then what it does is it creates these snippets. So here's where all of that ChatGPT does pretty well. I would say I do like these answers better from Claude, and I will definitely say it's faster. I mean, a lot faster to run through this. No hiccups like you were talking about, Beth. No, oops, I can't do that. No, why did you cut it off? ChatGPT. Claude just was like, okay. I ran this whole thing in like probably 90 seconds, the entire thing. But where it typically falls down and where I just want to show a quick example of is actually writing the emails. ChatGPT is notoriously bad at writing emails, cold emails. We know this. We've done it hundreds of times within the company. So I said, great, here are the snippet. So in this case, we're going to talk to an account. We're going to do the first one here. Chief Marketing Officer in an enterprise software technology company. And it's got our trends that we want to talk to and everything else. And then I had it write a 7 email sequence. And what it does is it goes in and it says, great, the first 2 emails are going to focus on the first trend and value prop. The second 2 emails and so on and so forth. The 7th email will be a breakup email. And just to give you an idea of some of the quality that it's coming into, like even this like email 4, I know you're likely already leveraging rich behavioral data from your website and marketing automation tools and track engagements, but are you applying the same level of insight to your video content? 64% of marketers report that video positively impacts the lead quality engagement, but many aren't tapping into the video view data as part of their lead scoring and nurturing strategies. With Vidyard, you can blah, 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 blah. This is highly specific and detailed to that chief marketing officer. And again, the only thing I gave the model after my prompting was one website. It did everything else on its own with some examples. This email sequence, much like Gemini Advanced, is far, far superior to anything I've ever gotten out of ChatGPT. This is a free model. And that's, by the way, the paid. I'm using the paid version of ChatGPT, and Sonnet, the free version of Claude, is outperforming it in this particular task. Very niche, I know, but in this particular task, it's outperforming it 20 to 1. I mean, it's light years better than what was coming out of ChatGPT. So that's just a real world example of where I would absolutely go, hey, ChatGPT, but not again. Hey, ChatGPT, go run this first part for me. As soon as I get the snippet, I'm going to go over to Sonnet and I'm going to run it through. That's exactly what I would be doing. So there's a good use case of jumping from tool to tool. Why? Because the output is just simply better. And if I'm writing cold email sequences, I need something better than ChatGPT can give me. And this is a free option.
Yeah.
How am I going to say through that? I know we're at time.
Yeah.
No, I'm trying to get through that quick.
Yeah, no, I have something just to jump off of that is that is an extreme valuable resource there, and the fact that you aren't stuck in or you're sticky to Chat GPT for it is speaks to how valuable that is. But I wanted to reiterate before we close out what Beth's statement earlier in the show was. And I think you touched on this too, Brian, is you get vision with the free version. So if you're not stuck in any particular major ecosystem that's going to be using this, try it out. When I did my testing, I did it with everyday applications. If you were just, a free user, just trying it out. And the vision component is extremely valuable. So the output, like you're talking about, Brian, and having the ability to just take a snapshot of whatever you're looking at, or take a thumbnail, or take whatever picture that you want, that image processing really is a huge value, especially at the free tier, because you can't get vision with the free tier for ChatGPT.
100%. I gave it the entire mind map that I created in Canva, and it went 4 or 5 different ways, just the way my brain works. And my boss was like, I don't know what to do with this. I'm like, it's clear as day. Look at it. It's right there. He's like, I can't make heads or tails of what you're trying to say here. I gave a screenshot of it to Claude, and Claude took all of it and rewrote it top to down. And I gave that to my boss. He's like, do you use ChatGPT? I was like, nope.
you know what's sad though? What's sad is a lot of people are still using ChatGPT 3.5 as the base, and they will never ever use anything else. And GPT-4, they won't even go to Claude. They'll be like, the heck's that? I'm not going to go that. It's a little sad, and it's tough to, especially when you're trying to clients like, hey, why don't you try Claude? It's actually better. And you can see it. They accept the message, but it's not going to resonate. Like, it's not going to like, that's fantastic what you just talked about. I'm just going to go with something I'm comfortable with. So it's like, it's part of the, if you could just see because what I'm trying to do is like show them the possibilities, the more possibilities, but it's not. So the last hope that I have is that OpenAI, once they put 5 out, 4 becomes the default. And then everybody gets 4. And it just opens, like, then everyone's like opens it up, right? So that's kind of the hope that I think we all have. And then everyone gets 4, everyone gets GPT, custom GPTs, and then away we go. And then I would have a feeling we're going to have to pay a little bit extra, because Sora could be included into GPT-5, which then opens up everything else.
Whole other pricing. Yeah, I'll probably with that. Yeah. Okay, we got to wrap this up because we're way over today, but this is a really good conversation. I mean, look, Claude, Anthropic, if you haven't gone play with it, go literally to claude.ai and go play. Go do it. That's what our answer is to all this anyway. Is like, how will you know? You won't until you go play with it and you use your use cases and go test it out yourself. But we all would say we highly recommend you at least go take the time to play with it, put the time in, and see what you think. All right, that's it. We're going to reach out. Thanks guys all week. Been good, and we will see you next week. Bye.